Paris, in the late afternoon, was a city of contradictions, romance and ruthlessness, elegance and grit, all woven into narrow streets and sunlit cafes. The cobblestones of Rue Montorgueil glimmered under the soft golden sunlight, reflecting the bustle of pedestrians and the occasional delivery cart clattering by. The air carried a complex perfume: fresh bread from boulangeries, roasted coffee, faint perfume, and the faint tang of the Seine nearby. At the heart of this scene was Café Lumière, a cafe with high arched windows, polished oak tables, and brass fixtures that caught the sunlight like tiny stars. Its interior smelled of espresso, vanilla, and subtle hints of butter from the pastries being plated behind the counter. The patrons were a mix of locals, tourists, and office workers, a microcosm of the city itself. Behind the counter worked Julien Dubois, a 20-year-old waiter with dark, slightly messy hair, expressive brown eyes, and the nervous energy of someone who had spent most of his life trying not to disappoint. Julien came from a modest Montmartre family. His father, a retired painter, had taught him that pride came not from wealth but from hard work, while his mother, a seamstress, instilled patience and humility in every action he performed. He loved Paris, loved the rhythm of the cafes, and dreamed of one day opening a small bistro of his own. But today, like many days, he carried the invisible weight of anxiety, afraid that one mistake could undo all his efforts. The cafe was busier than usual that afternoon. The hum of conversation, the clinking of cups and cutlery, and the soft jazz playing on an old piano created a cozy but lively atmosphere. Julien moved between tables, balancing trays of espresso and delicate pastries, his movements careful, almost reverent. At a corner table sat Pierre Leclerc, a man in his mid-30s, whose very presence seemed designed to demand attention. His dark designer suit was immaculate, his hair perfectly styled, and his gold watch gleamed in the sunlight. With him were Julien's first real challenge of the day, Pierre's friends, equally entitled and arrogant, their laughter brash and condescending. Together, they radiated the dangerous combination of wealth and cruelty, the type of people who believed the world existed only to serve them. Julien approached the table with a tray carrying 2 glasses of red wine, his pulse quickening. A momentary distraction, a server rushing past. The squeak of a chair caused him to misstep. The tray tilted, and a glass of wine toppled, spilling deep red across Pierre's perfectly tailored suit. Time seemed to slow. Patrons froze mid-sip, chairs scraped back, and the soft jazz ceased to matter. Pierre's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits, and his lips curled into a sneer that promised retribution. "What is this?" he shouted, voice slicing across the cafe. "Do you know who I am, you clumsy little fool?" His friends laughed cruelly, circling Julien like wolves. One of them shoved the young waiter, making him stumble back into a chair. Julien's hands trembled. His voice shook as he tried to apologize. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean?" Pierre spat, his teeth flashing. "This is unacceptable. How dare you ruin my suit? You will pay for this. Fired immediately." The pressure on Julien intensified. He felt the heat of embarrassment rise in his chest, the sting of unfair humiliation burning sharper than the wine on Pierre's jacket. He glanced around the cafe, hoping for help, but most patrons avoided eye contact, uncomfortable with confrontation. Pierre's friends took advantage, jeering and pushing him further, their laughter cruel and loud. Julien's shoulders slumped under the weight of their abuse, and for a fleeting moment, he considered fleeing the cafe altogether. His confidence, carefully nurtured over years of service, was crumbling under their aggression. It was then that Jason Statham, sitting quietly at a nearby table with a single espresso, observed the scene with measured attention. Jason was a man of action, his face weathered and sharp, his gaze piercing through pretense and deceit. Dressed simply in a black leather jacket, dark jeans and boots, he looked every bit like a man who had seen the darker corners of life and survived. The tension rising in the cafe was the kind that did not go unnoticed by someone like him. Pierre noticed Jason's presence and sneered. "And who's this? Another coward thinking he's brave enough to stop me?" Jason rose, slow and deliberate. Every eye in the cafe followed him, the air thick with anticipation. He didn't shout or demand attention. His calm authority made the room lean in. "Leave him alone," Jason said, his voice low and unyielding. Pierre's arrogance did not waver. "Or what?" he challenged. You think you can stop me? The friends laughed, emboldened, and one of them shoved Julian again. This time, the young waiter stumbled violently, almost falling to the floor. It was the final straw. Jason moved like a coiled spring. He closed the distance between himself and Pierre, grabbed him firmly by the tie, and slammed his head into the polished oak table. The sound of the impact echoed across the cafe. Patrons gasped. Chairs scraped back. Pierre froze, stunned, as wine splattered further across his suit. His friends recoiled, shocked into silence. You see? Jason said calmly, releasing him. Accidents happen. Don't bow to them. Julian, wide-eyed and trembling, found himself smiling for the first time that day. He straightened his posture, a sense of dignity and courage blooming inside him. The cafe patrons, who had been silent witnesses, began murmuring quietly, impressed by the quiet but decisive justice they had just witnessed. Pierre slumped into his chair, defeated and humiliated. His arrogance stripped away, he avoided eye contact, unsure how to respond. Jason returned to his table, sitting and sipping his espresso as though nothing extraordinary had occurred, the world restored to its quiet rhythm. Julian went back to work, head held high, carrying a newfound sense of pride. The lesson lingered in the air. Courage can come in the most unexpected forms, and standing up for someone who cannot defend themselves is a responsibility that only the brave take seriously. Outside, Paris continued to pulse with life, romance, chaos, and beauty mingling in every corner. But inside Café Lumière, one young waiter walked taller, a silent hero in a small but unforgettable moment, and Jason Statham remained the unseen guardian, whose presence reminded everyone that justice often comes from those who act when others fail.